Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this video. We're once again taking a deep dive into the world of black tapes, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying experiencing it for the first time with you all out there. Something I forgot to do in last week's videos was remind you on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, I do an entire episode of Welcome to Night Vale. So those are the two things I do one Saturday, one on Sunday. Then on the weekdays, I return to the format of basically 4 videos a day. So, of course, not all of them black tapes. I do the black tapes, rabbits, Gen X, and Kingdom of Fear, Dr. Hunter S. Thompson's book. So, without any further ado, let's jump off into this thing.
Why the sudden rise of alleged demonic possessions?
Most people make the mistake of presuming that exorcism and demonic possession are the exclusive purview of Christianity. They're not.
That's Father James Kelly.
That's interesting. I also like the Irish last name for a priest. Yeah, I mean, you don't get too much more cliche than that.
He teaches religious studies and is a priest at the Church of St. Thomas in Bellevue.
All the major world religions address the ability of the devil to enter and partly or entirely possess a human host.
We call that mental illness in this day and age.
Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, even Buddhism, where evil spirits can take over animals.
Yeah, but it's Christianity that has built an entire industry devoted to the practice of exorcism. Private exorcists for hire, working outside the bounds of the church.
And does have a point. Does have a very valid point.
Have become millionaires.
I believe that Satan attacks our weakness. Greed is one of our greatest vices. It comes as no surprise that some would seek to profit from it.
How do you explain the recent rise in cases of demonic possession?
We live in an age where people are choosing to turn away from the church and seek their own path. Often that path leads to darkness.
And lower revenue for the church.
The occult, paganism, the rise of seances to contact dead spirits. Satan will use any opportunity to gain a foothold in people's lives.
And reduce the amount of money that the church is taking in.
But then, why didn't this exorcism boom happen in the 70s? Paganism and the occult were huge then.
That's when psychology began to gain legitimacy as a science.
Oh yeah, the religious attack on mental health industries. You gotta love it. Anything that reduces the income to the church is evil, and therefore Satanist. But the church aren't greedy. They're not greedy gits. They're just worried about your eternal soul at 20% of your income every month.
Victims of possession were mistakenly sent to asylums.
Mistakenly?
Sadly, yes.
Has there been an actual rise in cases of demonic possession? Or are there simply more exorcists?
Why would there be a need for more exorcists if there weren't more occurrences of possession?
You don't know, do you?
Is that what they say?
That's Dr. Brad Gilbert, a family psychologist in Seattle. He's a stout man with an easy smile. He's Austrian, and there's a dichotomy at work between his easygoing nature and a severity that comes out when discussing the church.
Ah, here we go. This should be an interesting interview.
I'm ashamed to admit the name Freud Flintstone popped into my head the moment I met him.
That's good. That's funny. I love it.
Well, Father Kelly showed me the numbers. Reported cases of possession have jumped over 400% in the last decade and a half.
Here's what's going on. These people are ill. They have issues that require professional treatment. When you're hearing voices in your head, and with the media and your church telling you that demonic possession is possible, it's easier, and perhaps even more romantic in some way, to jump to the conclusion that you're possessed, rather than face the more difficult and realistic conclusion that you're sick and in need of medical attention.
And that is the continuing battle.
The church has invested a lot of money and resources into training new exorcists, and they seem to be convinced that it's working.
These people are very often suffering from a form of monomania or demonomania, and I'm including the church when I say these people.
That's an interesting take.
What's demonomania?
It's what we call it when someone is convinced they are possessed by the devil. Undergoing a rite of exorcism creates a placebo effect, but does nothing to treat the underlying psychological condition.
Actually, the placebo effect is one of those things that are extremely and very powerful.
Ask the church if they follow up on these so-called successful cases years later. I'm betting they don't keep data on that.
Yeah, and if they do keep data on that, it's probably hidden away in a vault somewhere.
The church, as far as I know, doesn't make those records public. But once a person is exorcised of their demons, of course they're cured. We strongly suggest they continue to attend church moving forward. And we do our work for free, unlike modern psychologists who charge by the hour.
It sounds like you might have a problem with psychology.
I respect all the sciences. But that respect must go both ways. The soul is immeasurable. That's an area where science does not tread.
And science doesn't need to tread there, to be honest with you.
Aren't you concerned that you're endangering the lives of people who are genuinely ill, and because of your treating their illness as demonic possession, might not end up getting the medical attention they need?
It sounds like you might have a problem with religion.
There we go. When someone asks you a very simple, basic question, the attack comes out.
Fair point, but I don't have a problem with religion. Not really. I'm worried in the same way I'd be worried if some parent refused to give their child a necessary blood transfusion.
Mental institutions, hospitals, our streets are filled with people with mental illness who don't respond to psychological treatment. What if we're right and this is a religious problem?
What if, the church is a fabrication? I've always wondered, I might seek out some local religious leaders just to see what their opinion of the use of things like lysergic acid diethylamide and psilocybin for mental health versus an exorcism or things of that nature. And I've kind of been hard on church in general in this video, but it's mainly the Catholic Church. A lot of people and a lot of the Protestant religious leaders here locally that I've discussed things with over the last 30 years, the Baptist or the Protestant religions seem to be pretty cool with psychiatry and stuff like that. It's the Catholics that, it's dig it into their wallet.
It seems dangerous.
We must follow strict protocols before we can even consider performing an exorcism.
Medical protocols?
Yes. We send the potential participant to a licensed psychiatrist. Only after receiving medical approval is that person cleared for exorcism.
That's an interesting wrinkle.
Immediately following the conversation with Father Kelly, my producer Nick and I tried to track down a psychiatrist who performed this kind of work for the church. We were unable to find a single doctor who had ever cleared a patient for exorcism.
That is very, very interesting.
The church and the medical community clearly have very different agendas regarding exorcism. I wanted to speak with somebody with experience on both sides of that line of faith.
It happened a few months after my 14th birthday.
That's Derek. We promised we wouldn't use his last name. But a few years ago, he claims, he was possessed by a demon.
Can you tell
Yeah, I've been possessed by several demons every week if you go by the train of thought of some people. But they're just mood swings due to having too much sugar in my system, not enough sugar in my system, not enough food, not enough protein, too much food, too much protein. But, I'm not a clergyman, so I wouldn't know these things.
Tell me about what happened.
I remember going to my friend's house and smoking up. It was a regular Friday night. He had
I love how that he just, went to my friend's house and we were smoking. Got to keep everything, within the parameters, so, you don't have to worry about different ratings. Though they use profanities and have sexual situations. Well, not so much in this one. I haven't come across some black tapes, but in the Rabbits podcast, there's some sexual situations and stuff that they use. So I just wonder, it is what it is, I guess.
another buddy who showed up with a new girlfriend, and this girl had a Ouija board. I never played with one before.
You think the Ouija board may have had something to do with your alleged possession?
Or whatever they were smoking.
At one point, we were asking this ghost all these questions, like when he died, how old he was, how he died. But then the girl asked why the ghost was even talking to us, and that thing on the board went flying and landed in my lap. Freaked the out of all of us.
Yeah, I love the beep in there. That's kind of cool.
You think a ghost possessed you?
I don't know what it was. I'd been into some dark music at the time. I think...
Uh-oh, let's blame the rock and roll. I mean, we're taking a trip back to the 80s here.
it put my mind into a place that was willing to go anywhere. At least, that's what the priest said.
So it was the priest who suggested the music was related to your alleged possession?
He said you have to draw a line. And that's what I believe now.
How much do you remember about what happened?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
I don't remember much. I do remember being angry. All the time. For no reason.
That sounds like not eating enough food and having a little bit too much of the devil's lettuce, to me, to be honest with you.
Do you remember the exorcism?
No.
Not at all.
Maybe a few things, I guess. But it all feels like a dream.
What do you mean?
It's hard to describe.
Yeah, I imagine it is, because I don't think exorcisms that they do in the modern age are anything representative of the exorcisms that they did in, say, medieval Europe or Renaissance Europe.
I think maybe a dream is the wrong word. I can remember small things, everyday things like eating dinner with my parents and hanging out in the school cafeteria. But everything else feels dark. Like there's a thick cloud over everything.
Are you familiar with depression?
I've never been depressed, not really.
Do you remember how you felt when you came out of it?
Relieved, happy.
Yeah, really sounds like depression to me, but, who am I to judge? We'll go ahead and leave that there. We'll come back to this later. Hope everyone's doing good. And as always, be a good human. Be good to other humans. Peace.
Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?